The FIFA World Cup is covered by hundreds upon thousands of TV and sports journalists from around the globe. Luckily, I was able to catch up with one of those journalists, Richard Conway from BBC Radio 5 Live. He's a sports news correspondent for the company who's worked in front of television and for radio. He's even had a few shots at producing back before he became a TV presenter. Richard has covered loads of tournaments before, such as the World Cup and the Olympics in Sochi. Recently, Richard was able to win the Broadcast Journalist of the Year at the Sports Journalism Awards in February 2018. I was able to speak to him on his thoughts on the upcoming elections that FIFA will be announcing at the Expo Center in Moscow the day before the tournament begins. We talked about both tournaments of 2022 and 2026, along with what he's most looking forward to in this competition and who he has as favorites. The FIFA Congress at the Expo Center, and the main topic was 2026. But before we can even get to that, Gianni Infantino is pushing to expand the World Cup in Qatar, small Qatar in 2022 to 48 teams.
Yeah.
They've already decided they're only going to do 8 stadiums. They've already said that they don't want to share, even though everyone knows they can't host 48 teams, let alone fans and all the stuff that comes along. What do you make of it? Do you really think Infantino can get his wish of expanding it to 48 teams, and what do they do if they do have to do 48 teams? Because it's in November and it's 28 days, like we all know the storyline.
Yeah, it's this is one of the issues that I'm really fascinated by is how 48 teams in Qatar is going to play out. I think what we're seeing now is a series of is a choreography towards achieving that aim of expanding it to 48 teams. Financially, doesn't really make much sense. The TV rights have already been sold for it. Yes, you might be able to leverage a bit more sponsorship. So I'm not entirely sure what the rationale is behind it, other than political purposes for Infantino when it comes to re-election. But he's already promised it for 2026, and that's going to do is delivered on something of his promises to bring more of the world teams into the World Cup. So 2022 is probably just a way of supporting that aim, and it might help him at re-election time in 2019. Practically, it's going to be extremely difficult for Qatar. We know this because of the size of the country. I've been there a number of times. They're struggling with 32, let alone 48. So what this might do politically is allow Infantino a position whereby there is hostility within Europe towards Qatar staging it for a number of reasons. One, because of claims around the methods they employed to win the hosting rights. They, of course, say that they've never done anything wrong. And there's also the regional issues that are going on between Qatar and its neighbours, principally Saudi and the UAE. What this World Cup, if it is expanded to 48, will allow Infantino to say, look, we've had a feasibility study now, which is going to be approved at Congress, we think. We now need to look at how we implement this. So do we need to make this a regional World Cup? That would tie in with the Qataris' aim of and their messaging, which is this is a World Cup for the Middle East, it's a World Cup for the entire region. However, are we going to see a position where Qatar hands games to their bitter political enemies in Saudi and the UAE? I don't think so. So what you might see is that countries that have been friendly to Qatar during the blockade, so principally Kuwait and Oman, are brought in to provide stadiums, therefore boosting the regional inclusivity. It allows Qatar to not have sole hosting rights, therefore being a bit of a PR victory for Infantino perhaps, but who knows, it's a bit of a mystery at this stage. But that is one of the principal issues I think that's going to play out between the next, I would say, 3 to 6 months.
So now we move ahead to 2026 between the two bids, the 4 nations running for it, 3 on one side, 1 on the other. And I mean, everyone's been talking about this, from football fans to presidents of any nation, really. Who do you see as a favorite? As of late, it's been sort of 50-50 between the two sides.
This is a very, very close race for 2026 for this World Cup. I think everyone expected the USA, Canada, Mexico to run away with it, given the promises that they were making, given the infrastructure that they already have in place. And given the fact that Morocco is in the position it is, whereby it's the exact opposite. The two bids couldn't be more different. Morocco really struggling in terms of infrastructure and stadiums, but making big promises about what they can deliver, saying they're going to use the power of the World Cup as a catalyst for football and economic growth. The USA, Canada, Mexico bid has to be favourite at this stage. They have all the chips in their favour, and most importantly, they have FIFA's leadership behind them. FIFA will deny this. They will say that they're independently monitoring this and they have no say in the process. I personally know from sources in FIFA and around it and reported on this that Gianni Infantino is desperate for this World Cup to go to the USA, Canada, and Mexico. The kind of revenue it will deliver will really help him deliver on his financial pledges that he made when being elected. In terms of sponsorship, FIFA needs that money. The TV money's kind of tied in already. It's sort of been already fixed and sorted, so there's not that much of an upside to them on there. In fact, Morocco might be a better bet in terms of the European market when it comes to TV rights because of the time zoning. But that aside, the economics are firmly in favour of a United 2026 bid. I expect them to prevail.
And so an interesting discussion that's come up with this 2026 vote is Morocco claiming to FIFA that they should not allow U.S. territories who each have a vote or say in who gets to host. I mean, you look at a country like American Samoa, their one vote could be as powerful as, say, someone like Russia. So do you think they should be allowed to vote? Because it's no secret that they would like to have the United States be host for that tournament.
Well, again, this is another factor within this race that's so fascinating. So you've got the U.S. Virgin Islands, Guam, Puerto Rico, and American Samoa as the four territories that under FIFA's voting system, one member, one vote. Guam's vote is just as powerful as Germany, the world champions. This is going to be a tight race. The magic number, if 207 nations vote, is 104. You need a clear majority. The one factor to throw in on top of that, though, is that there is a third option in this ballot, which is none of the above. So voters can go in and tick for Morocco, tick for the United bid, or they can say, reopen the process, let's do it all again. And under those circumstances, both the United bid and Morocco would be eliminated, and it would be reopened to all the other confederations. That's not going to happen. There's not going to be a majority for that third option. But what will happen is that countries such as Iran, who hate Morocco and the United States, are going to tick that box. So rather than being able to abstain on the vote, you're going to have a number of countries that are going to be taken out of the vote in the first round. So both sides are expecting this to go to a second round of voting for that reason, because nobody will be able to achieve that magic figure of 104 in the first round. We're getting very technical here, but this is where the vote will be won and lost. So in a second round of voting, you're going to see some politics, you're going to see some horse trading, and that's why I still expect the United bid to prevail. But it will be extremely close. And those issues of those four votes from those four American territories, that may not be resolved until the day of Congress or the FIFA Council, which is taking place on the Sunday before. They won't want to give them up. I think there'll be a bit of politics around that as well.
Finally, for my last question, you're an English fan yourself. So where do you see England coming up in this tournament? Do you think there's pressure on England manager Gareth Southgate and the players? And if you don't see them as favorites to lift the trophy, who is your overall favorite? What are your predictions for this tournament?
So for England, I think Harry Kane may say we're going to go there and we're going to try and win it. I think as a captain, you want to say that. As a team, you want to see them striving. I think this is a bunch of very young players who don't exhibit the same kind of egos as we've seen in previous England squads, and I think that's a very refreshing change to see. I think if they make a quarter-final and they perform well, that will be par for the course. I think they can come home heads held high, and I think the FA's aim, which was in the previous years, was to aim for Qatar in 2022 as being semi-finalists or finalists, will be on track. If they don't perform to that level, then I think there will be something of an inquest. However, Gareth Southgate seems to be protected by the FA. They see him as someone to take this squad through regardless of what happens at this World Cup. So you're not going to see a dismissal. You're not going to see, as in previous years, whereby the manager is going to be fired or is going to fall on his sword. This World Cup is very much a testing ground for this squad. If they perform above expectations, get to a quarterfinal, even a semi-final. Semi-final would be way beyond expectations. So that's where we're aiming for, I think, in terms of predictions for England at this World Cup. Overall, I think you've got to look to the big powerhouses of world football. That Germany squad looks extremely strong, looks extremely good. Have they kicked on from 2014? Probably. Brazil, how are they going to react from the humiliation of 7-1 in 2014? They've looked very good in qualifying as well. And then you've got the other two giants in European football of France and Spain. The Spanish squad looks extremely strong. You look at who they've left out, let alone who they've got included, and you could look to them for a big performance. And France, always slightly mercurial. You never know what you're going to get from France. Are they going to turn and perform? Are they going to all fall out and not speak to each other in a very Gallic way, as they sometimes do? They will be one to watch as well. You're asking me to pin it on one team? you can never back against Germany. Let's never go against the Germans. Let's go with that.
Richard's looking forward to covering his third World Cup. He's also interested in finding out some of the storylines surrounding the tournament, including VAR being able to be used by referees for the first time ever in a World Cup tournament, and also if Russia can produce their promises that they had before hosting the tournament. For the Sports Gazette, I'm Los Olvera.